So I just want to show you quickly our agenda for today, and then we're going to go into a warm up. So, and actually, before we go into the warm up, I'll show you afterwards. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to do a quick warm up, 3 things in common. In breakouts, and then we're going to talk about teaching resources in our different subject areas, so we can have some time to share the teaching resources that we're each thinking about this semester. Then we'll talk about routines that help students become active and make sure that all students are participating. And then finally, we'll talk about some first day activities and share what we all do in the first days, the first week of a class. So we'll come back to that stuff. We're going to start with a quick warm up, just as an example of something you might use in your class. This is the warm up. You may have done it before. You may have used it with your class, but the activity, what we're calling it today, is 3 things in common. In breakout groups, and I think there'll be 3 breakout groups with 3 people in each group, but the goal is to find 3 things that everyone in the group has in common, right? So it has to be something that's true about each person in the group. The goal is to find commonalities among your group, though, that are unique. So what makes your group different from the other 2 groups? So whatever you find has to be in common. It has to be something that's in common with everybody in your group, but maybe something a little bit unusual, or something that, like we say we're all working adult education. Well, that's true of everybody. So, but is there something that's specific about your group that some commonality you have that everybody else doesn't have necessarily? So you have to ask questions and investigate. Could somebody, before we jump in, could somebody just restate what it is we're doing, or are there any questions?
Sure, I can restate. So we're in groups, 3 people in a group. We're looking for things that all 3 of us have in common, 3 things. And then ideally those things should be unique from the other groups. I mean, so we're not looking for the most common thing, but maybe something a little bit different.
Any questions before we jump in? Thank you, Helene.
Yeah, cool.
Eric, should we copy this, or will it be in the warm up in the rooms?
It won't be in the rooms. So I don't know if you need to, if we understand the directions, and I think all you need to do is then just, maybe you might take notes on a piece of paper or on a computer about what the commonalities are, but I don't know if you actually need this text in the groups. But you know what? Let me try something. I'm going to try putting it into the group so you can see it, just for fun.
That would be great.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Marty.
Sure.
One last thing, you have 5 minutes. So it's pretty
Yeah.
quick. So
Come on.
Minor point.
Here goes, have fun.
This was a challenging one.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go with broad because that's only our second one. What else? You like plants, Constantina? I see Marty likes plants.
We're back.
We are back to the main room.
All right, but do we all like plants?
It's too
like
late,
plants?
Tim. The buzzer is sounded.
That's all right.
Constantine is really trying here.
Can we just put in the chat? Do you mind putting in some of the unique commonalities that you found, or just some of the commonalities?
Kate, do you want to do it?
Yeah, I'll do it. Sure.
Thank you.
Tim, why don't you do it?
Okay, I will.
You could, you put any of the interesting commonalities that you found, even if they're not unique necessarily.
Okay.
We had little in common.
You needed more time. You probably have things in common you just didn't have time to find, right?
Probably, yes.
Probably don't know you have things in common.
Well, everybody has something in common.
While we're seeing the commonalities show up in the chat, can I hear a little bit about or can we hear a little bit about what was this like for you? What was your experience like? What did it feel like?
Well, in terms of English, it was great. And I know Urena and I, probably Kate, will use it. We loved it. We had some technical problems, which I don't have to bore, but they couldn't see me and I couldn't see them, but we could hear each other. But otherwise it was perfect, great, fun.
Yeah, it's a good activity. I'm going to use it too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lots of-
yeah. Urena was very quick on her feet because she talked about places we've been or want to go, and that was really helpful.
Want to go is super clever. That's a nice way to do it.
Why do you think this sort of activity might be useful?
It really gets people to quick to find out about each other, throw out things that they like right away, and then somebody else will. Definitely gets you talking.
And I think everybody can participate, I mean, somehow, the topics could be something that could be shared. So I think it's great as a warm up.
Absolutely.
To what Urania said earlier, it's a very, like low threshold warm up for going in a breakout group.
Yeah.
And also putting the answer in the chat. So that seems very, it's a very friendly way to start with a breakout group.
Also, it's
My only concern
Oh, go ahead.
now is making sure I know how to do it well, so it flows.
yeah, it's also very good practice for asking questions for ESOL students.
I think this would be great practice, like you could do it repeatedly with different questions in ESOL classes, right? Every class they have to go in breakout rooms and explore something a little more with the questions, deeper questions,
Yeah.
You know what, can I say something? I know we're going to talk about, one of the things I do is I start, in the very beginning of the class, I ask a simple question, something current and some, but, as people are coming in, the thing is, I find they're not so likely to participate. It takes a while. So it what might be smarter is the same thing, but with breakout groups. So there's just 3 people talking about it. And I think they're more likely to open up. And so I agree.
Totally. Yes.
So I'm going to put a link in the chat so that you can find the document that we're working on today. Quite often when we do this in a workshop, we will put a link to the Google Doc directly in the chat. But one thing I think we're realizing is that it makes it hard to go back and find things later on because you have all these different links to Google Docs. So we made a link to our PD workshops on our website. So the literacy.cuny.edu. I just want to show you how to get to the document that I'm in. So let me share my screen so that you can add some notes. There's good ideas coming up already, and we'd like to get some of those in the notes. So you can follow along with me now if you like, or you can do it separately. It's up to you. But when you click on literacy.cuny.edu, you should come to this page. This is the umbrella page for all the the CUNY adult learning programs. On this page, there's a link to resources for teachers. Let me know if you don't see what I'm sharing. And then when you go to resources for teachers, there's a lot of stuff on this page that you might want to look at, some of which I'm sure you're familiar with. But we added a couple new links at the top, we have a guide to, well, it's a work in progress, but it's basically, we're trying to collect what we've learned so far about online instruction and put it in one big document. So that's this here, which we're not really talking about today, but this link here, the second link, Cuny Adult Literacy Program Professional Development during Distance Learning. If you click on this link, it'll open up a Google document. And then this document has all of the workshops that we are offering, but also past workshops. So if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see upcoming workshops, but then you'll also see past workshops, and there's links to notes or recordings. So you see there's like a notes section or recording, like a webinar recording. So all these workshops that we've done in the past are in here with links to notes and that sort of thing.
What was this called? What was this?
It's under, so it's on, literacy.cuny.edu, resources for teachers, and then this second link here, Cuny Adult Literacy Program Professional Development during Distance Learning,
Okay.
which opens up this Google document that has all these, that has a description of workshops and then notes and reporting. So today, here we are, there's a link to the notes document that we're working on. So I know it's a long way around to get to that, but it means you can always go back to it later on. We'll also put a link directly to the Google, maybe Mark will do that, put a link directly to the Google Doc just to make it a little easier right now to get to the document, but we just want to make sure you know how to get back to it later on. If somebody saves something or you see an idea that you want to follow up on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so when you click on the notes document, you should get this document here. And so Mark, I think maybe is putting a link to the chat. And so when you get there, if you could scroll down, here's a description of the 3 things in common. We'll put a link to the complete directions for that. And then we're moving into teaching resources here. And we'd like you to start to add some ideas to this table. So I want to make sure everyone can get to the Google document.
Right. So Eric, are we going to go into 2 breakout rooms to do this?
Yeah. I'll need
okay.
a moment to set them up. Just give me 1 second so you can introduce the idea. Yeah.
So we thought for this, it made more sense to go into either a pre-HSC, HSC group or an ESOL group, because we thought the resources would probably be kind of specific to what you're teaching. So what we'll do first is just, put down your highest go-to resource in the chart, talk about why you like it and how you use it. And then we can ask each other questions in the breakout rooms to get more clarification, more information. So we'll be doing that for, how long did we say, Eric?
I'd say, I think about 20 minutes, maybe would be 15,
Okay.
20 minutes.
Okay.
So now, seriously, so my highest go-to resource is probably the example here.
Okay, well, so then do a different one that you also like.
Then do a different one.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Any resources from anything, just in general? This is general.
Yep. It's a chance to share the wealth. That's what we're
Right.
really doing here. Yeah.
Is
Yeah, 'cause
anybody?
I've been touting commonlit.org since I can remember, and even in these meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
So
everyone
if
get
you
a
want to
chance?
say, if you want to say more about why you like it, that's really helpful too, right? I just put a little bit down there.
Did everyone make their way to the document? The Google document?
No, is that the last one you posted?
Yeah.
That's the link I dropped in. Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's down on page 3 of that document.
Oh, there we go.
For the commonlit.org, is it that it's like a account and everyone inside of the your account and you can track their progress like that? Or is it that everyone has to log in individually? How does it work?
I usually set up a classroom. You can set up a class. So everyone in the class is in that class, right? So they go in, they have to, you know, create their own passwords or whatever, but they go in and everybody has access to the same things. And I assign the readings.
Yeah, you assign it and then it tracks how they answer inside of the classroom.
Well, it's a dual type of tracking thing, right? So commonlit.org will score the multiple choice questions for me and let me know how the students do, and I can look and see how they do. And then there are some short answer questions that I have to go in and score myself. So the website does
Okay.
some of the scoring and I do some of the scoring, but I can see everything.
All right, so I'm gonna add what you're saying here to the chart.
We're doing this now, or are we doing it in the groups, collaborating?
I think Eric's making the groups now. Are you
Yeah,
making
so
the group?
I'm ready.
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna do it in our groups, Marty.
Okay.
And Tim, I'm in the private chat too. Thank
Do we
you.
stay in the link or get out of this?
I think stay in the link.
Okay.
Yeah, keep the link up.
Yeah, Eric will just move us.
Okay, so we'll have about 15 minutes, then we'll come back and talk about it. Have fun.
Wow, I didn't get to read everybody's.
It was quite a list. We were so busy writing, we didn't get that much chance to talk, but if there's time, maybe if people have questions about different sources, it might be able to go back. Because we're going to be using the same document for the next activity. Is that right, Eric?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Well, are there questions or comments about what has been shared so far?
Wow, too many.
Did anyone learn about something new that they want to try out?
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
You know, I love the learning network,
Yeah, that's
but
what
to
I'm.
be honest, I don't use it that much with my older students. I find it, well, just FYI. So I teach 17 to 24-year-olds in the daytime at the door, and I use it a lot there with my younger students.
Why don't you use it with older students?
I was afraid that was going to be asked. My experience is it hasn't worked as well with me. They haven't been as engaged
Tim,
in
I
the
do think,
graphs and the charts.
do think
Maybe I
that-
need to try harder.
I think that a lot of the writing prompts are very much geared toward young adults and not toward older adults.
Oh.
Probably like
Yeah, so that too.
contests are usually about things of concern to, you know, because it's really designed, I think, primarily for high school. So I do find some of it not.
Yeah, for K through 12.
Mhm.
Oh,
I mean, so you have to be selective. I think you wouldn't just say, oh, every week I'll use that writing prompt from the Learning Network. I think you would find many of them wouldn't be appropriate. Didn't say
You have to do a lot of tweaking. That's what it is. So it's more work for me to use it with the older classes. I have to tweak things and change wording.
And I think we have that challenge sometimes with some of these other resources that are really designed for younger learners, but in terms of content, we're, you know, trying to serve up that content to much older students. So, you know, I noticed someone had said, I don't remember about which resource, you know, it seems kind of juvenile, but in fact, the content is pretty high level. I felt I that a lot looking at online resources. I'm saying, if I give my students this link, they're going to feel like they're watching Saturday morning cartoon, even though the content is at an appropriately high level for them. I think that's a challenge in the other direction.
Yeah, that sounds like one of the platforms I use. I like the periodic editable table thing.
Yeah, the periodic table is pretty overwhelming if you just give students a periodic table. So Eric, I mean, this is a little bit like doing the slow reveal graphs. It's like it's a slow reveal periodic table.
It's great. I like it. I'm going to use that.
Well, I mean, students looked at it and they were like, oh, that looks like a calendar. Oh, well, how is the calendar organized? And this way and this way. And then when we started adding things, and I never would have figured out how to do that if I didn't have a resource that could create those images for me, or it would have taken me 200 hours to, create a little table.
And speaking of images, now the one thing that did work with the classes from the Learning Network is that thing with the photographs, and they ask you what's going on here. What do you see? Yeah, they love that. Yeah. Now that works.
I use that all the time as part of my class routine because they usually introduce the picture. I think it's on Tuesdays. I meet on Wednesdays. So we always look at it. And then part of their homework is they have to go back and find what the reveal is. And then we talk about it on Friday. And many of those images that they use can be really used for older, I think, learners, because sometimes it can involve a piece of art or an interesting image of a cultural celebration that maybe they had never experienced before. And it was very, very easy for many of my students who were afraid to participate in other kinds of conversations where we were just looking at a picture and they could talk freely about what they thought was going on in that picture. And I found it to be very, very useful, and the students really enjoyed the process.
Yeah, and then in the spring of 2021, the Times had a whole collection, I think it was over 1,000 photographs from the prior year, from the beginning of the pandemic up until the spring of 2021, that I used for a similar thing. And I use it in the beginning of the classroom, because we were like a year into the pandemic when the spring semester started this year. And it worked really, really great. It was a great way to bring up the reality that, look, we're in the middle of a pandemic here without traumatizing people and without, So the Times, it worked, that worked really, really well.
So, Eric, I want to, I've learned a lot from you about how to try to get students to participate more in class remotely. So I wonder if we want to move on to the next activity where we can talk about that a little bit. That's been a challenge for me. So you're muted, Eric.
Yeah, I think we should transition to that. I agree. So we have a couple discussion questions to get us started on this. I'm going to put them in the chat. They're also on page 8, I guess, of the document if you want to go there. What I thought we might do is do a combination. We're going to be all together for this part, and maybe we do a combination of just talking through some of this and, taking notes as well. If we're in the middle of a conversation about one thing, but you have a different idea, maybe you could go ahead and put your comments in the chat, or so not in the chat, but in the document. But maybe Mark or I will take notes, or Kate will take notes.
I'm happy to take
notes.
I'll take
Okay.
note.
All right, so we're going to
Maybe
page
we'll take
8.
notes in the document, so just of ideas, like what, so what I'm thinking about, like, if my personal experiences, when I taught in person, I thought I knew how to put students into groups and get them talking to each other, and also figuring out how to draw out participation from most students, or, I don't know about all students, but doing my best. But in an online environment, I realized I had no idea how to do it. And so it sort of defaulted back to just me talking, which I really don't want it to be what the class is like. And so I'm curious about what you all do to make sure that students are active, and that also those students who are shy or sort of, have the camera off and they're muted, and how do you draw them out and encourage participation from all students? So I'm wondering what do you do? I know you have ways of doing this. Just what are those ideas?
Do we put them in the box?
You can
No,
just.
I recommend just,
I'll
yeah,
type.
just
Talk
talk.
and I'll type.
Talk and type?
I will type, you talk.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do that too. I form a lot of reading groups, and I try to do them in levels too, without letting anybody know specifically. Over a text that we're either using as a whole class, or an article that we're discussing about a certain topic we're discussing. But I find groups is great, because the smaller they are too, they're more intimate, and people are working together. They have to exchange, and it's an all class, small class activity. It's great. So that's one.
This isn't an activity, but it's a general observation that just slowly dawned on me. It's certainly true that there are students who are going to be less comfortable participating in this environment, but I think it's important to remember there are also students who are more comfortable participating in this environment. And there's, students who will put things in the chat who would probably never who would be less likely to voice something in class. And so, part of what I've tried to think about is just to kind of reorient what I think about as group participation. And what a student would have been writing in a notebook, if they put it in the chat, other people are seeing it. So this visibility of silent communication is actually not an opportunity that you have in a face-to-face class. So, I think it's important for us to kind of lift up and value even something small as participating in the chat.
And one thing that helps me, there's a lot of reading, at least in my HSC classes, there's a lot of reading. And I do very little of the reading. So they know that I'm not going to sit here, droning on and on. So that's an expectation that they participate,
Tim, they read out loud? Is that what happens?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Right. So there's that expectation. And then sometimes I just have to ask, can someone besides Mr. Smith and Miss Jones please read? But I do very little of the reading.
Can people say more about their success with Wheel of Names? Because I haven't tried it yet. I keep thinking about it. I mean, obviously for something very small, like what's your favorite ice cream, Wheel of Names is pretty low stakes. But for example, Tim, if you were asking people to read, or if there were particular, just a more difficult, a more challenging response was needed, people had success with that. I don't know who put it on the list.
Yeah, I haven't used the Wheel of Names.
I haven't.
Sometimes I will let them know that, okay, I'm going to just start calling, names as you appear on my screen.
Mm-hmm.
And it has some modicum of success.
So since I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well,
Tim.
I was just gonna say quickly, Wheel of Names came out of, it's a teacher from Bronx Community College talked about it, and she was talking about it in just, it random, she puts all her student names in it. And so it just randomizes who she calls on. So students can't really check out. And it's also, it adds like, it's kind of fun, but also just that students have to pay attention because who knows who the teacher's going to call on. You know, because sometimes like when you're looking at a screen, I still don't understand how Zoom privileges which pictures and names they put up, but it doesn't always cycle through and it's not always random. And so just to kind of help her ensure that she's, you know, with all the different things she's got going on in the moment, that she is pulling in students who might not be talking.
Especially when you have more than one screen full of faces.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'd like to hear from Audrey or Constantina or Helene, how you do it, how you get participation and create community.
I've used the name picker, like I personally didn't have a lot of success with it because it kept on going back to the same people. So sometimes I don't really like to call on people. I like to let them feel comfortable to speak. But I mean, sometimes we will have like an order of how we're going to do it. So they know when their turn is. So, I mean, if you're talking about, are we talking about routines that we have or how we get people to participate?
Oh, so if you want to do a routine, that would be great too.
Okay, so one of the routine that I have is, well, I've used the routine that Moira had introduced, the rose and a thorn.
Uh-huh.
So I've used that a lot and that was very, very successful. And I usually just write, as they're speaking, I type it in like on the screen, not even in the chat. I just type it in so they can read about what everybody is saying. So I use that.
I'm not familiar with it. Could you tell me more about it? People were nodding their heads, but I was going like this for Rose and a Thorn.
It's a picture of a rose with a thorn and talk about something good that has happened to you and something bad. And it can be, or not so good, or something positive, something negative, and it can be in anything you like. I mean, you can assign it as it's something good or something bad about your day, or something good or something bad about what we're doing, a lesson. I guess everybody can pick their own topic about what, a rose is something that's nice and a thorn is something that's a problem. It can be about the weather, I guess. It can be anything that you want. So we do that, and I usually put the picture of the rose up, and they like to see that. It's pretty. And then another part of the routine I do, as I said, is I do the Learning Network. We do the weekly news quiz. I put it up on the screen and we read it, and there are multiple choice answers. So we look at the picture and we talk about the question. And if there are lots of vocabulary words that are always new to them. I will always make a list of the vocabulary words on dictionary.com and send it to them afterwards. But so we do the weekly news quiz. And then we also do what's going on in the picture prompt. So that's usually, sometimes that takes up can take up the whole class if it's really, it can be a lot. So, but I try to pace it. But those are routines that I find that when I don't do it, they're looking for it. If one week I missed the news quiz, they'll say, oh, we didn't do it. And they look forward to it. So those are my routines.
Nice. Okay.
Can I go next?
Sure.
Okay, sorry.
Sure. No, go ahead.
So as a routine, I used to type the question of the day at the beginning of a class. And that was also a way for me to wait as people were joining the Zoom. Some of them were late, so instead of waiting, I would post a question, the question of the day, on the chat, and ask students to type an answer. But then I started doing it a little bit later because I wanted everybody to participate. And it would be a conversation activity. And I would pick a question that would also give them the chance to practice grammatical aspect we were practicing. For example, what do you usually have for breakfast? And then instead of picking students to answer, I would ask a student, and then the next student I would tell them, ask somebody else, and they would pick a person to ask next.
Yeah, it's a good follow-up. My routine is quite similar. And I start with a question or something that I hope they can tell, what do you think? How do you like the weather? Or how are you feeling about, what'd you do over the weekend? Or something that hopefully they can all answer. And we do this while we're waiting for students to arrive. If students don't respond, I'm very direct. I will make sure on each activity that everybody had a chance to answer. I then go to a warm-up. The warm-up is usually with a partner, and it's on something we've covered the time before, usually a grammar point, superlative, or any grammar point. And I've created questions, and they do a question and answer. And then they come back and they review it. We then, if there's homework, we'll review homework. Again, they'll first review it with a partner or small groups. And then as a class, we can quickly review it. And then we'll do something new. If in each activity, if a student don't volunteer, I ask directly. I actually have found that the remote has been very good for the shy students. There's something about the setting, they feel they're like just talking to me. They don't really feel everybody there. And they've been much more open to talking. That's my routine.
So if I may, so my routine has been, of course, checking on the students. This is last year, of course. And so afterwards, since I usually teach the math section, I would begin with a simple pattern, not too simple either, not too overly challenging, just so they're not discouraged, and would work on it together. So I would literally hand draw, like could be shapes or just math patterns, and then it kind of gets exciting, I guess, and everyone gets involved, and then we continue forward to our lesson. That's pretty much what I did after checking on everyone, of course.
So Maren, you hand draw the pattern, and what do you ask the students to do?
To see what the next stage of the pattern is, whether it's like sometimes it's a numeric pattern or sometimes it's just shapes, and then they kind of get excited. No, that line's a little off, and that gets people talking. And it's not that I couldn't actually cut and paste a properly drawn geometric shape, but I felt, I've tried it that way too, but I thought, when you kind of make, because I don't really know how to draw also. So when it's kind of crooked, it's kind of funny too. Right. So, I just tried little tricks like that to get everyone smiling also. That's what I did.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So let's see. Someone put these, the science experiences in, and then someone wrote, give students a short answer, open-ended or opinion question in Google Classroom for homework.
That was me. They actually belong together.
Okay.
I ended up pasting it into the wrong box. Well, I'm messing up the document. So
Fine.
just
Interesting.
one way that I've used Google Classroom is with a very short so discussion question prompt to try and set up something I'm going to cover in class. And the nice thing is, and that's required, but it's short and it doesn't take a lot of time. And then I played around with presenting what students said, like in these little speech bubbles.
Really nice.
And so I think it gives a sense that, first of all, this homework is not just going up into the ether and checking off a box, right? Kind of, I think it makes it feel even more relevant. And I would have students who might contribute here who would not typically speak in class. So literally, well, actually not literally, graphically having them speak. And that was pretty popular and people liked it when they got picked and put into the slide.
Yeah, nice.
Mm-hmm.
I love that idea of quoting students and bringing it back the next week, let's say. I don't know if you're doing this on the fly or you're doing it like maybe the next class or something, but.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I don't know exactly how I'll do it in the sequence that I'm teaching in now, but I used to give this out 2 days before class. 2 days before the class when I would be using it, which of course gave me a chance to see them and select some of them and drop them into a slide. I think it would be very difficult to do on the fly, like to take things out, to take it live and make it look pretty. I don't do that very fast.
Yeah, right. I've done a little bit of that in math as well, but for me, it's usually like we did something one week, and I'm pulling out a couple strategies or ideas that students had, and then I'm, as part of the review next week or the continuation, excerpting that, and then saying this is Jose's method or something. And it's interesting to see students' response. I just really clearly had this experience this summer. The student was just beaming for like the whole time we were talking about her method. She didn't really participate verbally, but she had this huge smile on her face. And it was just clear that it was meaningful to her just to be, to be highlighted like that. So I think that's great. I love it.
Yeah.
So do we want to spend any time on first day activities?
Yeah.
I think so. I'd like to hear some personally.
Okay. I'm doing the jar of awesome routine.
What? The what? Can you read?
Eric, you familiar with that? Okay. So can I share my screen?
Sure.
Sure. Let me stop. Am I sharing now? I don't know if no. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So it's not letting me share for some reason. Okay. Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I already made it as sort of a first writing assignment. And as you can see, I put it in my Google Classroom under handwriting because I want to focus on actual handwriting. And so this is their first writing assignment. And it's for them to get a jar. Can you guys see my jar? It's just like a mason jar. It's like a mayonnaise jar or something. And here it is. Here are the instructions. It's pretty simple, but I've done this before and it's kind of fun. Well, my picture isn't coming through, but can everyone see the instructions?
Yes.
Okay, there it is. So I want them to actually start handwriting as we're working online this cycle. So this is an opportunity for them to get started. I'm going to ask them to have a writing notebook too. But in this exercise, they can do it before class and then they could talk about it. And I want to see who did it ahead of time. So I don't know if that counts as a first day activity. anyone have any questions about it?
So will they be working on this lesson during class time, or is this like a homework assignment? I'm just
Oh,
curious.
okay, no, that's a
Thank
good
you.
question. Yeah, well, I've already sent out the, the welcoming letter to them with their Zoom links and their Google Classroom links. So I already have a number of students already signing up because I've already checked, and they have, they've already linked their email in. And so they're going to see what's in the, I'll just share this again just really quickly. They're going to go in here, and their welcome letter is here. They're going to see this. I have mostly returning students, so I think they know the routine. And it's a huge class. And they're going to notice this is like the first thing there, and they're going to open it. And then they're going to see, this is your first writing assignments. And then I want them to see, I want to see who follows the instructions and who actually does it. And I'm going to do it the first day with them. For a moment, I'll say, did anybody do the jar of awesome? And then I will do it. I'll do it, right? It's like my first Saturday ESL class, and I'll do it, show them, and then I'll let them do it, or it'll turn into some sort of discussion, I assure you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else have a first day activity they want to share?
I mean, I do something like to get them to know one another. So I might use what Eric did in this group, 3 things they have in common, just some way for them to get to know, and maybe do it a couple of times. So they've met the 3 people in one group, and then there might be another breakout where they'll meet some more, and then we'll talk about it. We'll go over the basic policies, the basics for the program. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of new people, and then I'll do something new. I don't know what it'll be, so they feel it was worth coming to class.
Something I've done before that kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone, which is that in addition to, I want to do something with breakout groups where people really begin to engage with each other, but I also, on the technology side with working with Zoom, I start out and I say, we're going to do a chat check. So I ask a simple question and everyone needs to respond in the chat, and I record everyone's answer, but it's still something that tells you something about that person. So
Sure.
we did, could be your favorite food, or my favorite question, what's your favorite word? So, kind of get that kind of thing. And then I do another one that I call a mic check. So you do the chat check first, because that's much easier. And then a mic check, when I do the mic check, then I really do call on each person. It's practice in going, unmute and mute, but again, very low barrier of entry. Just tell me, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? That's not hard to do. And then record. I record all of this, live in the slide. So people, again, that validation of seeing what you have said, put up kind of on the screen in front of everyone. So those are like, make sure everybody can use the Zoom, but it's also an icebreaker.
That's good. I like that. I'm going to use that. Similar.
I can go next. So I have the beginner students, high beginner, ESOL students, and I've noticed that on the first day, they feel more comfortable participating in activities where they have to find out about me and not talk about themselves. So I was thinking of using 2 activities, maybe not on the same day. So one of them can be a list of answers to questions about me. So for example, purple, Greece, and they have to find the question. I let them know that these are all answers about me. So that's one activity, and the other one is 2 truths and 1 lie. So I write 2 sentences about me that are true and 1 that is not true, and they have to guess which one. So this one we can do as a whole group. The first one not maybe, in breakout rooms where they have to find the questions to my answers. Yeah.
That's good. I'm open to some more from Kate or Eric or Mark.
We'll hear from others in the group, like Urena or Tim or Audrey. What are some others?
I mean, well, one of the things I always do on the first day, not a whole lot, but I talk a little bit, I introduce myself and I let them know a little bit about myself. First of all, I've found that they found that to be, interesting, oh, wow, you've done this, you do this. And then I just go around and I give them the opportunity to share as little or as much as they would like about themselves. And that's like a standard first day thing for me. Introduce yourself and share as little or as much about yourself as you would like. And then we work from there. Introduce the class outline. And try to, call questions and things like that from the very beginning to get them used to asking questions and giving the students the opportunity to answer questions. Again, I don't have to provide all the answers. One thing I wanted to go back with the participation thing very quickly. What I've found too, so we have those students that want to read all the time and are always ready to read, those that participate very little. And then you have a bunch of students in the middle that they may not volunteer to read, but I know when I call on them, they're going to be ready to read. And those are the ones that I save. I save them. I'm very intentional. I save those students for when I get stuck. If I know that Marty's going to read, if I call on her, but Marty's not going to raise her hand, then I'm saving Marty for if we get stuck, and say, okay, go ahead, Marty, you go ahead and read, So I'm very intentional with that. So there is a little bit of a strategy working there.
Okay, thanks.
And I think they kind of know I'm saving them too. They know that at some point, I'm going to call on them.
So guys, I was out for a little bit. My internet was having its own party. Are we sharing things that we say work well in the class?
So Urena, we're doing first day activities. What do you do the first day?
Oh, still first day?
Yeah.
I like to do a getting to know you with the students because for me, I'll tell you something that worked for me. One thing that worked for me is I'll ask students what is their favorite genre of music and what is an artist that they like at the very first day. And then for me, because I like to do this, it's easy for me to play music in the background at the beginning of class or during a break. And that way I feel like it helps students stay motivated throughout because I'll have a list of the things that they like. And I'll know, okay, well, this day I'm going to play this song, this day I'll do that. And that way I feel like it incorporates everyone into the class, only because like I feel like I have a range of music knowledge. So I feel like I'll know exactly what they're talking about, and I think it helps throughout the class. Like I use it on the first day for throughout the class, if that makes sense.
Can I speak? One thing that I've done that has worked is I use a chapter from The House on Mango Street, My Name, and we read that together. My name is, and then I have them work in groups and they do an acrostic for Esperanza. And then they present that to the class, and then they work individually and they make an acrostic of their own name. So that's kind of a little bit of a way to get them thinking about reading and writing and getting to know each other, then talking about their name. Where does their name come from? What does it mean? And then there's sometimes as a follow-up to that I use on make-believe comics. They have a lot of good writing prompts. So there is a writing prompt about my name in make-believe comics. So I would sometimes have them write about their name afterwards.
Is make-believe comments something online?
Yes, make-believe comics, makebelievecomics.com.
Okay.
What's ZZ the X? Mark?
ZZ the X, that's in The House on Mango Street.
It's so in the piece that Audrey is talking about, my name, the girl is
forgot,
lamenting
right.
her name, and so she's like, I don't want to be called Esperanza, I want to be called something cool like ZZ the X.
Right.
I forgot about that. Right. I haven't read that book in a long time.
I did that summer of 2020 with a class. We got through the whole book too. It's a good class book.
So Mark or Eric, do you want to share anything before we wrap in either of the categories, routines or first day?
I just dropped one in, so you don't have to type it, Kate, but one thing along that lines of on the first day, letting students know something about us that then you can use as a routine throughout is starting each class with like a 1 minute, I dedicate our learning today to, and kind of just sharing either a person you know or a person you don't know, but just to kind of bring that in and you know, virtually people, it's cool. It's something you can do. You know, it's easier to kind of present when we're online. You can share a picture or something like that. But just something, so on the first day, you can talk about something, they get to know something about that's meaningful to you, but then also it models something that you can do, and it only takes a minute. You know,
Like a show and tell?
Kind of like a show and tell, right? Yeah, exactly. But of a person.
Hmm.
Yeah. Actually, a show and tell would also be really interesting because, you know, people can just say, here's the thing I have. And if they're comfortable with that, actually, has anyone done that? Like an adult show and tell?
No, but I've done through the Tenement Museum. They have a wonderful project where you have a personal item that you brought from your country.
Yeah.
And you have to write about, you know, what it is, why it's important, you know, blah, blah. And they love that. And it's wonderful, really. Similar.
I
Yeah,
like
there's
to,
also, go ahead, Marty.
just
Yeah.
really quick. I was just gonna say that I like to the building the community in the sense where everyone gets to know each other and speak about each other and all of that, even the teacher included. I like that to evolve naturally. So I don't, you know, single anybody out or, you know, put the spotlight on students. I used to do that, especially with lower level classes, but with the higher level class, just sort of, I found that it evolves naturally when everybody gets used to the routine and each other. So.
Yeah, I think for BE, sometimes it's a little, you have to sort of cultivate it a little more. Students often, I don't know if you other BE folks agree, but sometimes like students don't know each other's names. So when I publish student writing and give it out, students are like, oh, you wrote that? Like suddenly they're paying attention, they're learning the other student's name. So
But they will learn each other's names eventually, right?
not always, no. Not always. I don't know, that's my experience. And just remotely, it's just so much, you really have, it feels like, to me, like you have to cultivate it because, I mean, just for the students I work with, that may not be true in ESL, but it's so easy to just see each other, you know, here's the information, goodbye. It's naturally in a class, you know, a break, you're talking to students, you don't have that anymore with remote.
I find it more intimate class, remote class, but I see what you mean.
Yeah. So, do we have before we wrap?
What was the question? I didn't.
Well, I was sort of looking at Eric, like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that we have, I don't know, anything else anyone wants to add before we move on? I really appreciate all the contributions today. I feel there's a lot of great ideas.
Yeah.
I may be contacting a few of you to see if we can post some of these on Collect Ed. I'll put in the chat, there is a section in on the website that has icebreakers and some other like texts about learning, which is sometimes I think useful, like just reading about people learning. But I'll put that in the chat. It's also in the document.
Eric, is there any place, I haven't taught in, 3 months? And I'm a little rusty on some of the technical tools. Is there any, might you have something, or is there any resource I can look at to sort of refresh my, my memory?
Yeah, so we have how-to videos for teachers. We have some how-to videos for students. We have how-to documents for both. All of them are in the professional development document that is linked on literacy.cuny.edu in the resources section. I'm going to put a link in the chat as well. Say it again.
The one that you referred to earlier?
Yeah, I'm putting it in the chat as well, but there's a link to this Google document I just put in the chat. On the first page, it has links to how-to videos for students and teachers and some other how-to documents. Mark and I have been brainstorming how to add more things there. So if there's specific things that you want to know how to do, or your questions that are coming up, let us know.
Okay.
We can either find videos to add to our list, or we can make them. Just to, again, to show you where this stuff is for later on. If you go to literacy.cuny.edu, our main site, you can also just, Google the CUNY Adult Literacy Program, and you'll get to the same page. Look for resources for teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the second link on that page once it comes up here. Second link, professional development. And when you open up that document, the first page has links to videos and documents and things like that. It's under these useful links section.
I have a copy of all your videos, Eric.
Say it again.
I have a copy of all your videos, and I post them in my Google Classroom under videos for students on, how to use Google Classroom, how to use Zoom on your phone.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. And if there's stuff that you think should be here, let us know so we can add it. If you have any specific questions you want you want to try stuff out, contact us and we can set up an individual conversation if you want to try things out, or we can just talk through email or whatever. So yeah, let us know.